This is the best week of the year in the astrology, which is so funny because last week was the worst week of the year. So it's an interesting follow-up, and it's the best week of the year because, number one, on Monday, we're going to be having Mercury station direct after, of course, the first Mercury retrograde with Uranus and Gemini. But the big thing is Venus is going to be conjoining Jupiter in Cancer. This is essentially the best transit of the year. So this is why this week is really exciting just for that. Also on Monday, we do have Saturn making a sextile to Uranus, which isn't really good for the economy. We're going to see what ends up going on in the stock market. But nonetheless, it is going to be helpful for at least you personally. And then later on this week, we have Mars making a sextile to Mercury. But then by the end of the week, Mercury makes a sextile to Mars, which is an interesting little, planetary speed combination. But anyway, this week is really exciting, and I think it's going to be even better because of the fact that last week was so problematic. So let's just go ahead and get started talking about it. Welcome back to the Astrology Report. My name is Cam White. We're talking about August 11th through August 17th of 2025. It's so funny to me that the Mars-Saturn opposition happens right before the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. And in my monthly rising sign horoscopes that I have over for members that I do every single month to help you guys know exactly what's going on for you guys by rising sign each month. If you're interested in that, go ahead and check out the membership link in the description or in the comments below. The cardinal signs are really getting the most affected by this because everything's super angular for them. And it's so interesting that these happen in cardinal signs. And it's very interesting to me that we have this incredibly tense moment that then immediately leads into like something really good happening. And I think it's one of those things where, have you ever had something really, really bad happen, but then a very small good thing happens and it's not that significant, but it's more significant because you just got off something bad? That's what this week is kind of about. And so again, it's just this Venus-Jupiter conjunction that really is the icing on the cake. And of course, Mercury stationing direct really, really helps with things becoming a lot clearer. But yeah, let's just go ahead and get started into it. So like I said, Monday is really the big day, which is exciting because we started the weekend off with all of the bad transits, and then we start the week off with the good transits. Number one, Mercury stations direct. Throughout the day, the moon is going to be in Pisces, making a conjunction with the North Node early on in the morning. And then we're going to be having Saturn make a sextile to Uranus. And then we're going to have Venus make a conjunction to Jupiter as our three highlights of the day. So number one, Mercury stationing direct. This has been a really interesting Mercury retrograde to me. It hasn't been totally horrible. It's been, for me personally, really tech related. Like the amount of tech issues has been kind of like, wow, Mercury is definitely retrograde. But I want to come back to the whole Leo thing. Who the fuck are you? I mean, what I mean by that is sun's still in Leo. We only got a few more days left. Next week, the sun goes into Virgo. But as the sun's in Leo and, the Saturn-Neptune thing going on in Aries, we're kind of learning exactly how we want to define our identity, and we're realizing how hard that might be. The sun being in Leo is we have access to that willpower that we need. Mercury stationing direct in Leo. Do you need to think about it? I want to share something. This isn't a personal story, but out of all of the, I'm a huge history nerd. All I do is study history. On my free time, I love history. One of the most compelling things that has ever hit my brain that I think about constantly. In fact, when I have lots and lots of money, I really want to commission an art piece for this. If you know anything about Alexander the Great, Alexander the Great was given the kingdom of Macedonia from his father. And he was like 16 or something like that. I forgot what age. But anyway, he went to the Oracle of Delphi. The Oracle of Delphi was like your local tarot reading, spiritual person. And she was a big fucking deal. Everyone got an oracle from the Oracle of Delphi. She was like, the absolute person to go to. So Alexander the Great goes up to the Oracle of Delphi and says, give me an oracle. And she pretty much was just like, I don't got anything for you. I don't got an oracle for you. And he pretty much grabbed her by the throat and beat her and was like, give me a fucking oracle. And she said, you're going to be the greatest king that ever lived. And he was. And I think about that all of the time in terms of in divination. Oftentimes, our willpower is so weak that we allow any symbolism to guide us through life. Anything that might have a slight sense of meaning, we use that as these guardrails that push us maybe into a direction than otherwise that maybe we wouldn't have gone down. And there's something really powerful to me about, there's a hack around divination, and it's just by brute fucking force. And I know I'm going to get a lot of comments of oh, Cameron, why do you like that? Because he beats women, whatever. No, it's not about that. By the way, shit was way different back then. They were slitting throats and raping people for fun. But there's something so symbolic about if you're reading a tarot card, if you are getting these divine messages, you don't have to listen to them. You can force your way through something. And I know that sounds counterintuitive. I know that sounds like not the right way, but that is a choice. That is an option. And you have to consider the greatest king who ever lived, who conquered more land at the age of like before he turned 30 than any other human in history. And if you actually look into his tactics, his ideas, like his mindset, it's just genuinely incredible. We're still talking about him over 2,000 years later. And he said, fuck your oracle. I want what I want what I want. And I'm saying that with Mercury stationing direct in Leo, which is like, at what point do you decide who you are? At what point do you make a decision and say, this is who the fuck I am, and I will only accept things that are in my world that approve that? Because you might think you're someone, but then someone might criticize it. Someone might judge it. There might be something different. And you might go, oh, well, maybe I'm not that guy. Well, maybe I'm not that person. And it doesn't matter it doesn't really matter what the context is for your life. You decide who you are. The astrology is a roadmap. Again, if you want to go conquer land, the astrology is going to tell you what the weather's going to be like, what kind of bandits you're going to run into. Your own birth chart is going to show you, again, your biggest obstacles, and at the same time, it's going to show you your biggest leveraging points to get there quicker, faster, and easier. And these things will happen, but you get to decide. Again, you can't always, like, you're not in control of what cards are dealt, but you are in control of how you play them. That's the whole thing with astrology. You will be dealt a certain hand of cards. But if you watch enough poker, you realize a lot of these professional poker players lie their way to winning. I'm not suggesting lying. I'm not advertising that, but it's more symbolic of like, you don't have to get dealt the best cards to win. In fact, it's never been that way for anyone ever. And if you're literally metaphorically getting dealt a certain thing of cards, it's not about you going, well, I only got these cards, so I can't win. You're either a winner or you're not. And I really look at this Mercury stationing direct opportunity as like, okay, are you going, like, at what point do you decide who you are? At what point are we done with the mental games? At what point are we done with the, is that too egotistical, blah, blah, blah. Some of you, so many of you are actually so egotistical, but because you think that you're not like self-centered, that you're not. Your ego is not necessarily just about being self-centered. But I say this because we're either using the astrology or the astrology is using us. You can be pushed by the winds like a paper bag, or you can direct your sails where the wind is blowing to get you where you want to go. And so I look at Mercury stationing direct as on some real shit. At what point do you decide? At what point do you make the decision that, no, this is who the fuck I am. This is what I want. This is what I'm going for. And again, this is what I love about the Leo stuff. It's just honesty. It's just truth. Like Leo is the light. I go into that really deep into the zodiac and to the planets lectures. If you guys want to become a member for the Learn Astrology, because that's like, I really go into the Sun-Saturn axis, but that's a whole other story. So throughout Monday, the moon is going to conjoin the North Node in Pisces, which I love because the moon in Pisces makes a trine to Venus and Jupiter late Sunday night, pretty much into Monday morning. But the moon in Pisces is much more open. It's much more, sensitive. It's empathetic. I say empathetic, but with not like let me pour my heart out to you, but more so of like being open, like emotionally and spiritually. The moon conjoining the North Node is like a hunger and a drive for that. It is this like, I want more of that. I feel an increase of wanting more of this openness, this adaptability with my heart and my soul. And I think that really helps on Monday. And that helps with the Venus-Jupiter conjunction. So the whole thing here is Venus is pleasure, rewards, value, love. And she's going to be conjoining Jupiter, which is the gift giver, which is about abundance, which is about hope and faith in its exalted sign. So Jupiter being about hope and faith, spirituality, shit like that, it's exalted. So what that essentially means is that it's on the come up. It is in a really advantageous position. Like essentially exaltations are kind of like the underdog, like that's kind of coming up versus like a planet and its domicile is like the top dog. So there's a little bit more rooting. Like for most people, they kind of root for the underdog. They root for the person that's on the come up versus when someone's at the top, they kind of like, have their issues with it. So Jupiter's on this like come up here. Jupiter is, I got a comment on one of my on my last weekly about like Jupiter's kind of overrated, and I wouldn't disagree. I would not disagree. And sometimes Jupiter can become problematic simply because oftentimes we get into spirituality, we get into religion, we have to strive towards having faith because of existential circumstances or negative circumstances, right? Like there might be a cohort of you that got into spirituality or astrology because life was super great and it was just interesting versus a lot of us got into it because like shit wasn't adding up, shit wasn't making sense, Our lives had all these problems. And so we strived for learning. We strived for education. We strived for some sort of hope. So Jupiter can bring circumstances that bring negativity to it. But the whole point of it is like, well, it's for your path of like getting into more faith and more hope. Like 12 years ago when Jupiter was in Cancer is when I got into the occult. And it was because I had a suicide attempt. And I was like, well, I'm not doing that. And I need to do something different. And the church, I didn't really agree with what I was learning there. So I started getting into occult shit. And here I am. Anyway, Venus is conjoining it. So this is both of the benefics together. There's some sort of receiving pleasure, some sort of receiving relationships, receiving love, receiving value. What's more important is understanding what houses Venus rules in your chart and what houses Jupiter rules, because those two things are coming together in whatever house Cancer rules. But this is some sort of like really good thing. Now, you might comment on this week like, Cameron, nothing really good happened to me. And I think that you're wrong. The amount of times I've been able to call out in client conversations of, hey, this thing happened here. And they said, no, nothing happened there. And then I get an email 3 or 4 months later. They're like, oh my God, this thing happened. And I didn't even realize it. Like you have to have a lot of awareness to really practice astrology efficiently, or at least to a certain degree. But there's some sort of pleasurable, hopeful opportunity happening here. There's some sort of good thing. And maybe it's just a silver lining, but maybe that's all you need right now. Because I know a lot of people are really struggling. And I think last week was really tense. Maybe you just need a silver lining. Is a pile of cash going to fall from the sky? Are you going to win the lottery? Probably not. I don't think so, actually, at all. But maybe that silver lining is something that you can lean onto that will actually give you that hope, that will restore your faith in things. Now, when we talk about Saturn making a sextile to Uranus, this is a little bit more geopolitical. It's a little bit more economic. I'm really interested to see, me and S.J. Anderson had a podcast. He was on my podcast maybe about a year or two ago, and we talked about the fall of 2025 being where like the economy kind of comes down. So we're going to see about that, and I'm wondering how much of it is the Saturn-Uranus sextile. But what's also interesting, if Saturn's about structure and responsibility and discipline, it is fallen in Aries. So there's this taking on more than we can handle, or being overly restrictive, overly disciplined. Like the thing is, Aries is about like fight, conflict, punching through things, and Saturn's about restraint. So there's this like oxymoron going on here with Saturn and Aries. But with Uranus, which is about, again, liberation, freedom, breakthroughs in Gemini, which again, the whole hack right now in the universe is being curious. Just start being curious about things. That's where Uranus is going to really help you out of. You just allow yourself curiosity, not saying, oh, I'm going to do this knowing I'm going to fail, or I'm going to do this knowing that I'm going to win. It's not how it works. Just be curious and open to what happens. But Saturn sextiling Uranus is whatever things that you have structured, whatever things that you need to have more discipline over, that you have authority over, or that you are limited by, there is an opportunity for curiosity to alleviate some of that pressure. There's an opportunity. And again, you have to know where Saturn's at in your chart, Uranus is at in your chart. You guys got to start knowing your chart. You can't, people are like, this doesn't line up for me. Well, because astrology is really fucking complex. And this is just a general horoscope. And you got to really understand the complexities of your chart, or at least to a surface level degree where you could start putting, the Lego blocks together. But Saturn and Aries, when it comes to discipline, restriction, authority, and what we have like a control over, it's actually struggling. It's actually hard. So let some sort of piece of technology, let some sort of curiosity, let some sort of innovation in terms of just having a creative thought process. Like the first decan of Gemini is all about like an explosion of information. As all this information explodes, allow that to create a little bit of instability. But that instability or that curiosity or that like, again, I'm working on some Uranus stuff here. Prometheus the Awakener, steal the lightning bolt from Zeus to free the slaves. Maybe the slave is yourself. So we get to Tuesday, and on Tuesday, the moon is going to ingress into Aries. I'm almost going to be, I got to find a term to explain the moon going into the air and fire signs for the next little while, because the moon's going to go into Aries. It's going to conjoin Saturn. It's going to conjoin Neptune. And then it's going to sextile Uranus. And then it's going to sextile Pluto. And then the moon will go opposite Mars. And then the moon will trine Mercury. All this lunar stuff is so funny with all the outer planets. So the moon going into Aries, emotionally charged up with our actions. The issue is it immediately hits Saturn, the malefic there, and it will go opposite Mars. So I kind of just want to hit on that, because as the moon's in Aries, like we have this emotional drive to take action, to do all these things, but Saturn in Aries is like restraint. Saturn in Aries is also like, you can't do everything. So what is actually worth doing? You cannot take it all on yourself, even though a lot of Saturn in Aries, like as a Saturn in Aries native, like if you want it done right, you got to do it yourself, sort of a thing. But you have to be able to not outsource. What's the delineate is maybe a synonym for what I'm looking for. What is better for you to do versus what is better for other people to do. Saturn is about restraints and limitations, and the moon going into Aries and conjoining Saturn is like, okay, I have the energy to do all this stuff, but I can only do so much. The moon will then, again, so it conjoins Neptune. We're talking about the whole visual thing. It sextiles Uranus. So there's all of this kind of just like, bam, like sporadic energy. But as the moon conjoins Saturn and then goes opposite Mars, you actually can't do anything. The moon in Aries wants to fight. It wants to create conflict. But as it's opposite Mars in Libra, you are the defendant in this case. So you have to understand what is worth doing. You have to understand that you can't do everything. Mars is action and energy. It's in detriment. Saturn is ruled by it. Neptune's ruled by it. And right now, Mars is weakened. The good news is at the end of September and October, Mars goes into Scorpio. October into like November is some of the best astrology. In fact, right now is kind of the worst of it. September, we get eclipse season, so there's a bunch of change. But then like October through January is like some really solid astrology. February, we start getting into good astrology, but February through like July of next year is like the World War III stuff. So, take that for what it means. But I just look at this moon going conjoining Saturn is like, I want to defend myself. I need to like fight. But it's conjoining Saturn where it's like, you have to be restrained with what you do. You have to, like, you want to touch that hot stove, don't fucking do it. The moon's then going to go opposite Mars in Libra, where the conflict is not going to lead anywhere. Like, a lot of Mars in Libra wants to be passive. And again, this is the way I think about it. Mars in Libra is oftentimes inaction is better than taking decisive action. And it's one of those things where I would want you to just wait a second. Don't exactly act, even though there's something about Tuesday where you're going to be like, I need to do something. Just don't for me. Maybe you'll feel like you need to, but you can't. Lean into that. Accept certain things. Because I just think there's going to be a lot of issues if you do. Now, the moon goes opposite Mars, but then it starts to trine Mercury in Leo, so later on this week, we get the Mercury-Mars sextiles, which is really interesting to me. And this is the way I've been thinking about it. Okay, Mars is in Libra, right? We can't just, take all this action and fight to the death and all that stuff. So what can we do? And we have Mercury in Leo. Mercury, communication, ideas in Leo. Again, are you that motherfucker or not? But think about it this way. Like, maybe there's a better way to phrase this, but like, what would a winner do? Mercury in Leo is saying, rather than thinking of things from a Mars and Libra standpoint, which is weakness, right? Mars and Libra is like, well, I can't do this and I can't do that. Mercury in Leo is going, well, what can I do that assists like that with Mars and Libra, where I have to take an action actually helps? Like, for example, maybe a good example is like the OJ glove thing. Just don't put the gloves on all the way, silly. You know what I mean? God, I love the OJ Simpson trial. It's so much fun. So much of modern culture is based off that too. So while there's all this energy and action, I think you need to be a little bit careful, be a little bit more restrained. And as the moon is in Aries trining Mercury in Leo, I would rather you not think from the place that you are, but think about the place that you're trying to go to, that you want to go to. But wherever you're trying to go to, wherever you're trying to lead to in terms of your life, whatever that means, bring it into the present. How would that person react? What would that person do? How would that person communicate things? Because there's something about action on Tuesday that's like, I don't think action's the right idea. It is a little bit more strategy, but I wonder how many more action steps. I wonder how many more different opportunities you have if you change your mind. Like something someone told me a while ago when I'm stuck between this decision or that decision is, what is the secret third option? That has really changed my life in a lot of ways. And all I think about is, what is the secret third option? What's your secret third option on Tuesday? We get to Wednesday, and on Wednesday, the moon's going to be in Aries. It's going to square Jupiter and Venus, and then it's going to be trining the sun. I like Wednesday. The moon, yes, is making a square to Venus and Jupiter, but it's contacting Venus and Jupiter. I think that's the good part. It's not really touching any more malefics. It's only touching the benefics. And so the moon in Aries kind of being in the superior position here is a little bit forceful. Like, it's kind of like, have you ever, I don't know, given a kid something and they just kind of fucking take it from you? You're like, damn, shit, kid. Like, you could be nice about it. You could say thank you. But that's kind of the energy. The moon in Aries making a square to Jupiter and Cancer is maybe being a little bit too forceful for a situation that requires maybe a little bit of sensitivity. But the moon squaring Jupiter is, I think, hopeful. Jupiter's in the sign of the moon. Venus is in the sign of the moon. Moon's in Aries. So there's this kind of like these resources, this emotional abundance, this comfort and safety is helping me take more action. The issue is like the action just needs to be a little bit, it might be a little bit rough around the edges and you might have to be a little bit more soft. For example, I get complaints all of the time on my channel of cussing when there's kids watching, even though I make this not for kids. And then you guys are like, I'm watching this in front of my children. You cuss too much. I don't know what to tell you. You're a problem. But, you know, like there's a lot of other things I wish I could say, but I got to be a little bit, you know, I got to package it to you guys in a way that is, you know, edible. But on Wednesday, that moon making that aspect to Venus and Jupiter, there is some sort of a positive thing going on here. It's not necessarily like receptive. It's more of taking, and, you know, take it. You will definitely be getting something and it will feel good. There just might be this kind of like, you know, it's not about what you said, it's the way you said it kind of a thing. But then the moon in Aries trines the sun in Leo. There is a lot of confidence on Wednesday. Feeling confident in your energy, just feeling, I think, fucking good. And so it's like, I really want you to win on Monday. And that's like, I really want you to win on Monday. I really want you to see the silver lining. And on Tuesday, I want you to like, where if you feel like indecisive, if you feel passive, if you feel like you can't make a decision, I want you to hack that by like really putting in a different frame of mind, a much more higher frame of mind, and put that to yourself right now. What is the future self? How would the future you make a decision based off of what you're going through right now? What would they do? What is the secret third option? I think that's going to allow you the confidence to build a different strategy, to have a different plan in order to go where you need to go, do what you need to do. And on Wednesday, I think there's a lot more pieces that happen that are much more positive, that by Wednesday, when the moon is in Aries, trining the sun in Leo, you're feeling pretty fucking good. We get to Thursday, the moon is going to go into Taurus. It's going to then square Pluto. The moon will then make a square to Mercury in Leo. And then we have our first Mars-Mercury sextile. The moon in Taurus wants to be a little bit more relaxed. And so there is a relaxing energy, or at least trying to relax on Thursday. But it squares Pluto. Try not to doom scroll, essentially. That's how I look at the moon in Taurus, is like you're trying to chill, but then you're like, you know, name your whatever. It doesn't even matter what you believe. Name your existential dread topic that you can't stop thinking of. That's like moon. And it's like you're trying to hang out, but like, how can I hang out when, you know, there's, you know, climate change going on? Like, okay, stop. Like, fucking smell the roses. It's not, climate's not changing today. Like, you know what I mean? Like, enjoy today. But then the moon goes into Taurus and it squares Mercury in Leo. And there's some sort of like a loud communication disrupt that kind of disrupts your emotional peace. You know, try not to, it's like you want to go have like a nice, I don't know, a meal, and you got people that are super loud in the restaurant. It's something like that. It's not that big of a deal. The only thing I would say with the moon in Leo making that square to Mercury in Taurus is the fixed signs are really good at not changing. And so the moon in Taurus might be like, I really want to feel comfortable right here, right now. But Mercury in Leo might be like someone telling you something, you know, being communicated to you that you're really resistant of. What's funny about astrology is like this. I'm not trying to sit here and be like, well, don't resist it, because that's not what's happening. What's happening is resistance. Just acknowledge that you're in resistance to it and come back to it later. Like, you don't have to make a decision on something right then and there. But then we have Mars making a sextile to Mercury. And what's interesting is because Mercury is stationing direct, and Mars, because of its a synodic cycle and the speed that it's moving, Mars makes a sextile to Mercury, which is really rare. Mercury, because it's the faster planet, is what's going to be making aspects to planets most of the time. And so this is actually something that I'm going to be teaching in my aspects course, which is going to be launched here in 2-3 weeks, sometime around then. But if you want to really master the aspects in astrology, become a Learn Astrology member over on my website. Like, you'll get the zodiacs, the zodiac course, the planet course. You'll become an expert on the fucking zodiac, an expert on the planets. But we're going into the aspects next. And the whole point of the aspects is like, it's not just like, oh, the moon is trining Mars, but it's all synodic cycle related. And we get these interesting things like, okay, if Mercury's the faster planet, which is going to be the planet that is typically aspecting another planet, which is the planet forcing something onto another planet, it's interesting when we get these rarities when Mars is making a sextile to Mercury. So what does that look like? This is what we're diving deep into for the next quarter over on the Learn Astrology membership. So if you want to learn astrology, become a master at the aspects, go ahead and sign up below. But Mars is in Libra. So again, there's this detriment in our actions. There's this indecision, there's this passiveness. And as it sextiles Mercury in Leo, this might be a little petty. This might be like, you know, I can't defend what I'm doing, so I'm going to say something nasty to someone else. I'm going to, you know, try to speak up because I feel like my ego is being attacked. We don't do that here. So let's try to calm it down. But what I do like about Mars in Libra is, if you like, it's kind of like rage bait, if that makes sense. I love online rage bait. It's so funny to me how people do it. Like there's some stuff that's like, okay, this is clearly rage bait, calm down. But there's other times where it's like, you could just see people triggered. Like I've been talking hella shit about the Lionsgate portal thing, and so many people are triggered about it. And it's like, all I'm doing is saying is this isn't real. And people are like, oh my God, this is crazy. And so I look at it as Mars and Libra. It's not necessarily about like inaction, but Mars also like disrupts relationships in Libra. Mars is a little bit of like, I don't know what action to take here. But as it sextiles Mercury and Leo, let's come back to who are you? Let's come back to what are you about? Who is this new version of you? You have to constantly choose into the life that you want. Does that make sense? You don't just say, you know what, I'm going to do this and then do it. You have to constantly choose into that every single day until it becomes crystallized into your identity. And I think this is an opportunity to say, you know what, Mars, which is about Mars in Libra is about indecision, inaction, is applying to a sextile with Mercury. For example, when we get to Sunday and Mercury sextiles Mars, it's like that confidence kind of helps alleviate the pressure of action. This is the pressure of action kind of coming into Mercury and Leo and asking you, okay, are you going to falter? Are you going to hide away? Are you going to diminish yourself? And I don't think that's the option here. I think there's this kind of like, Mercury in Leo sextiling Mars and Libra on Sunday is like when you don't know you're in a fight with someone and you don't know what to say and your friend's like, say this, text them that. You're like, oh, okay, I'll do that. That's kind of what Sunday is. But maybe this day is like you coming up to your friend and being like, I don't know what to say. Like, I don't know what to communicate to this person. And, have you ever had someone fight for you like that? Like, yo, text them this. You need to say this. That's kind of this relationship of Mercury and Mars going on right now. But maybe Thursday is much more of like you coming to them. We get to Friday. The moon will be in Taurus. It's going to sextile Jupiter and Venus. And then the moon squares the sun. Friday kicks some fucking ass. I think Friday is a excellent day of feeling rested. The moon's in Taurus, we're chill, we're relaxed, we're stable. It's sextiling Venus and Jupiter in Cancer. Here in Vegas, you can't go to a park and a picnic. It's fucking terribly hot. But this is very picnic, charcuterie board, relaxing, and just enjoying life. It is okay to enjoy life, even though I'm one of those people that's like personal development. We got to always be doing something. It is okay to relax and rest a little bit. And even if you are still working, hustling, whatever is going on, there's something enjoyable about Friday. If you're not enjoying something, that is a personal issue and you need to have a little fun. Maybe you need a little tickle. But it's super chill. The only thing is the moon's in Taurus, making that square to the sun in Leo. It's like tense because the moon in Taurus wants to have this kind of relaxing energy, but squaring the sun in Leo is but you have to be a little bit performative. Like think of like an artist that, wants to just have a dinner. A famous person wants to just have a dinner at a restaurant, but, they get recognized by everyone. Or like Justin Bieber, the paparazzi just bothers him. It's like there's this like, hey, I want to chill, I want to relax, but I have to put on a little bit of a show. I have to be a little bit performative. I don't think that's really bad. It's just kind of like, okay, like I'll do it and it'll be fine. The sun, both luminaries are dignified. The sun's in Leo. It's not like it's bad exposure. The moon's in Taurus. It's not that you can't relax. There's just a little bit of tension in the situation that calls for it. Saturday, the moon goes into Gemini, sextiles Saturn, moon conjoins Uranus, sextiles Neptune, trines Pluto. Then the moon is going to trine Mars, and it's going to sextile Mercury. Again, moon's making all these, touching all these, fucking planets. So it's just like, again, all of a sudden it's Saturday and all this like energy just kind of pops up. Tons of energy. The thing I wrote down was brain blast, like Jimmy Neutron. There's something about the moon going into Gemini and conjoining Uranus of like, holy shit, I have this idea. Holy shit, I just realized this. It's really exciting. It can be really unstable. But what I like about this is, the moon conjoining Uranus has this explosive idea, explosive, like new information that pops out at you. Depending on where it's at in your chart is going to tell you, like what house it's in is going to tell you what type of information or where it's really coming from. But as the moon conjoins Uranus and then it's going to trine Mars in Libra. This is why I almost want you to take in action, because this moon conjoining Uranus, trining Mars in Libra is like, bingo, that's the info we needed. That's the information I didn't know I needed. That's the information that is going to change the way that I take action on this. That's why I just want you to chill for a minute. Because as the moon goes into Gemini, you just need to, again, it's like, have you ever, unfortunately, ChatGPT is a really good lawyer, unfortunately. But like, have you ever just like trying to figure out what to do and then you just find something? And you're like, oh, I didn't know this information. And now what I have to do makes sense. Now I know what I can do. That's what Saturday's for. And then as the moon's in Gemini, it trines Mars, it sextiles Mercury, where you're like, that's right. I am that motherfucker that solves problems. I am that motherfucker that can do this. So like sometimes inaction is the best action. Like, I watch a lot of self-defense videos and this guy named John Correa over on Active Self-Protection, amazing channel about learning about self-defense and like what's appropriate and what's not. He has something called purposeful compliance, which is, for example, let's say you're at an ATM and you're pulling out money and someone has a gun and they have it pointed at you and they come to rob you. You purposely comply. Because if you try to, like, let's say you've got a gun too and you pull it out, well, he's already got the gun pointed at you. He's just going to go bang. And then, you know, before you even get it out. Purposeful compliance is essentially, you know what? Hey, I'm going to let you do this. Now, what he talks about is like, let's say, for example, the guy, you know, then turns his face away from you and he's focused over here and the gun's not pointing at you. Then you can draw and you could take action. Like sometimes you just need the right cue, the right information, but purposeful compliance is it's also, oh my gosh, what do people call it in the work? Like, in jobs, I don't have a job, but like, yeah, purposeful compliance when it comes to, oh, I'm just following the rules and it causes issues. Like that's kind of a Mars and Libra thing. But yeah, there's something about like just on Saturday, like getting information. It helps you make a decision. It helps you understand what is yours to do and what's not. And I think it just like inspires a lot of that confidence. And there's just kind of like this connecting ideas of things. So I really like Saturday for that. And then we get to Sunday, which is then when Mercury sextiles Mars is the highlight and the moon is just hanging out in Gemini. So coming back to this idea of like, okay, like Mars and Libra, sextiling Mercury and Leo, it's like, oh my gosh, I've got this problem and I don't know what the right mindset is for it. I don't know what the right thing to say is. You just need to hang on for a minute, be a little bit patient. Because then by Sundays, Mercury's in Leo, sextiling Mars and Libra. It's like, say this, communicate that. Like sometimes you need, this is something I've talked a lot with Mars and Libra, is like you need someone to fight for you or you need to fight for someone else. That's like the hack with Mars and Libra. And so the Mercury sextiling Mars in Leo, Mercury in Leo sextiling Mars and Libra is like just someone fighting and defending you, or at least, again, that's more, you know, of analogy and of metaphor. But I think this is when the idea, the mindset, the mind frame helps you then understand how to be defensive, how to kind of not take action. Like my client here, you know, did whatever because he was scared or whatever, like whatever bullshit things lawyers say. So there's more connection to the ideas and the plans and the actions that I think a lot of this week is like, you're going to get pressure to do something, try not to take action. Saturday, the info comes up. By Sunday, now you're feeling good about how to exactly manage this situation with this new mindset, with this new mind frame. And then the moon's just hanging out in Gemini. A lot of chatter, a lot of communication. It's not technically void because it will be sextiling the sun on Monday morning next week, but it's just a lot of like ideas, communication. There's a lot kind of going on Sunday. Not that it's like too much, but just in terms of like your emotions or in Gemini. It's like, have you ever had something happen and, you know, your friends ask you about it, so you're like talking to like 7 people about the same situation? That's like a moon and Gemini thing. So anyway, next week, Sun goes into Virgo. New moon in Virgo happening next week. The sun will square Uranus and Mercury leaves shadow by the very end of next week. Virgo season starts. It's back to school season. We're no longer in the pride. We're no longer the lion chilling in the sun or chilling in the shade during a hot Savannah day. But next week is really interesting because the new moon in Virgo is an opportunity to look at the part of our chart that Virgo rules over and kind of get organized with it. Because this is a new moon, right? So we get to kind of set some new intentions, but it's not an eclipse. The South Node is there. And it's really interesting to me when we have lunations that are not eclipses, but the nodes are in it. Same thing too when we have eclipses that are in zodiac signs that aren't where the nodes are at. Those are really interesting things to me. They're kind of like these weird loopholes. So next week, we kind of have a little bit of a loophole when it comes to looking at the part of our chart that Virgo rules and planting some new seeds, clearing it up before we get into eclipse season. September is all about eclipse season. Saturn going back into Pisces. So we kind of come back to that old stuff, and that kind of the tone for that really gets set next week. So that's what I got for you guys this week. Thank you guys so much for liking, sharing, commenting, and subscribing. Letting me know what you're doing. Tell me how much you hate me in the comments. Why not? Everyone else likes to do it anyway. So with that being said, I'll leave you guys with that, and I'll be seeing you next